Joining us on the line right now, former governor of Massachusetts and current presidential candidate Mitt Romney. How you doing, sir?
I'm terrific, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very, very well. So yesterday, you signed up, said, I'm going to be running in the New Hampshire primary, and you got a pretty big endorsement. Former Governor John Sununu. How do you feel about that?
Well, as you can imagine, I was delighted to get John, but also the First Lady, Nancy Sununu. She is one of the best. How she puts up with her husband, I don't know, but she does. And, he's a guy who was a terrific governor and then went off to serve the country as the chief of staff to a president, and then came back to guide the Republican Party to a really historic victory last fall. So if he can guide my victory, I will vote enormously.
Now, Governor, I got to ask you, you've been declared almost the inevitable at this point. People are saying, Mitt Romney, look at him in the polls from New Hampshire to even looking at Iowa. Nevada came out with a new poll today saying, you're way ahead there. Are you looking at this campaign right now as I am the inevitable Mitt Romney?
I wish politics were that predictable, but my experience is that what goes up can come down, and what's down can come right back up. I remember about this time last time around, John McCain was in single digits, and the people like Rudy Giuliani and Fred Thompson and even I were ahead of John McCain. He ended up getting the nomination. So at this stage, you fight like you're behind because tomorrow you may be.
So you're not changing your message or talking about anything different, determined on polls. Are you doing it just based on what you want to be talking about?
Yeah, I laid out a plan that had 7 major steps to get this economy going again, and I'll be talking about different ones of those steps over time. So we spoke, for instance, about some tax policy changes. We talked about regulatory changes, but there are other things to come down the road. I'll look at the federal budget and how we have to make that finally get reined in. So there'll be speeches, but it's not a changed message.
Sure thing. And we actually have a question from one of our listeners here. Joseph wrote on the Facebook fan page, it took Obama less than 3 years to drive our nation into oblivion. How long will it take you, Governor Romney, to get us out of the gutter without expanding government in the process? In other words, how do you plan to do more with less?
Well, the key is that if you believe that expanding government is what's necessary to get our country to work again, then you've already got the president that takes that course. My view is that the right direction is to rein in government, to get it back in its rightful place, and to once again expand the private sector and the ability of free individuals to pursue their dreams, to invest in their future, to start businesses, to expand businesses. That the answer is that government has become the problem, and the answer is to get government out of our way and to let the private sector thrive and grow. So, I lay that out in much more detail in my book, which is called Believe in America, which you can get, by the way, free online. But you can look at what we do to get the economy going. Will it turn around tomorrow, the day after I'm inaugurated? No, but I'll get it on the right track immediately upon being inaugurated.
Okay. Now, it's interesting. A lot of the candidates have come out saying the flat tax is the way to go. We have Rick Perry saying a 20% flat tax today. We had Newt Gingrich on the show earlier say a 15% flat tax. We've had Herman Cain's 999, Rick Santorum's 000. Well, are you starting to lean towards a flat tax, or is that something that you would put out there and say this might be the way to get the economy going?
Well, anytime you talk about a flat tax, you have to ask exactly what do you mean by a flat tax, and does it have the right characteristics for what the economy needs? My own tax plan is pretty straightforward. I like mine better than the ones that have been proposed by others because it's simpler, and it targets help where it's needed most, and that's on the middle class. And for me, those are 2 very important criteria. Does it simplify the tax process? And secondly, does it target relief where it's needed most? And so one of the things I do is I eliminate the tax on interest, dividends, and capital gains for all people in the middle class. And that's, in my view, one of the best things we can do to help people who are struggling under the Obama economy.
Sure thing. And I got to ask you about something that's sort of buzzing about right now. Some people are saying it's a bombshell. Others are saying it's just kind of a joke, talking about illegal immigrants benefiting under Romney Care. I'd love you to clear the air on this one.
Well, I think anybody knows that under federal law, if illegal immigrants are injured in an accident or have some kind of emergency, you must treat them. And that was the case while I was governor. My guess is it's the case in every single state in America. If they're getting anything more than emergency care, that would have happened after I was governor, not while I was governor. We gave them emergency care, and so I think if people elect Duval Patrick to be governor, they could expect liberal programs. And I think that's something he may be doing.
Sure thing, sir. And then just lastly here, we did a story earlier on in the program regarding a bizarre incident regarding the TSA with a note being written on one of those advisory cards that you get if your bag had been searched. Do you have any reaction to that? I mean, it's something. It was a lewd note written to a young woman, and just a bizarre thing because they saw some of her undergarments in the bag. I know this is a weird question, but it's something that a lot of my listeners ask me about in terms of the TSA and personal liberties issues. Where would you fall on maybe scaling back the TSA or looking over the TSA, looking over their shoulders? What do you think?
Well, there are a lot of things that you could expect when you have human beings doing the nutty things that sometimes they do. I would like to see a far more streamlined process, particularly that identified people who are certainly at no risk of being a threat to the United States, and having those people be able to swiftly move through the boarding process and not have to go through these pat-downs or these X-ray machines. It just doesn't make sense to me that, for instance, we require the pilots to do that. We require members of our military that have been in the military for years. We require people who've been faithful and strong servants of the nation and flying for 50 years to say, okay, now we're going to have to inspect you. This doesn't make a lot of sense, and I think we have to move to a process that distinguishes between those who represent a risk and those who don't.
Sure thing. And, sir, how was my good friend Sean Hannity yesterday, by the way?
Well, he asks a lot of tough questions, but he's paid for it, so he does a good job.
All right, Governor Mitt Romney, we do appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Hope to have you back on the air when you're in New Hampshire.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right, take care, sir.